Welcome to the Mile High podcast. This is your host, Dr. Daniel Knowles. Thank you for joining us and staying tuned in to all Mile High Tick. And a reminder for you is to hit subscribe if you are really about being connected to the heart and soul of our foundational principles and values. Hit subscribe, whatever you are watching or listening to this on, whether it be iTunes or Stitcher or any of the other podcast channels or YouTube. And also make sure if you have not grabbed your seats for Mile High 10, our 10-year anniversary, the time is now. You want to make sure to make that happen now. And so we look forward to seeing you on higher ground in June. Yes, in June, Mile High comes early this year. Now, I am grateful to introduce our guest for the podcast. He is a no stranger to Mile High. He has been at multiple of our Mile High Chiropractic Movement weekends and has been on the podcast before because his podcast episodes are some of the most listened to. And that makes him more than okay. So Dr. Brian Dooley, who serves at Sherman College, serves chiropractic in so many ways. He's 2005 graduate of Sherman College, and he won the Service Distinction Award and B.J. Palmer Philosophy Award, which I did not win. I got the Clinical Excellence Award, but he also got the Garfunkel Award. So he got a number of awards. And so that is why he is now Dean of Clinics, because he set up good habits when he was in school and since excelled. He's also graduated the first class of the ACP, Academy of Chiropractic Philosophers, and has presented at the modules of the Diplomat of Chiropractic Philosophical Standards. And he's also presented at Mile High, which is actually obviously above all those other things, well, at least by altitude. So, yes. So thank you for joining us today, Dr. Brian Dooley.
Thank you. It's so great to be with you. Always excited. Mile High is close. And we'll just start off by anybody that's been there before, you know that you want to be there again. And anybody that hasn't been there, you need to be. And so I look forward to seeing everybody out there.
I agree. And 10 years is going to be fun. And now the theme, let's talk about this. You know, we've had, people may have noticed the world kind of was a little bit unusual the last 2 years. It was a few things changed a little bit, and it kind of might have felt at some points like an alternate reality of kinds. And thus why the theme for Mile High this year is the Matrix. And Dr. Dooley was just telling me, because Matrix is about it being an alternate reality and things not appearing as they seem. So Dr. Dooley just was telling me he was doing some homework.
Yes.
He was doing some field work on researching the Matrix and watching the movies to prepare for his presentation, because he's a man who often he likes to be prepared for things. So because he has a stellar reputation to keep up.
Yes.
Dr. Dooley, what were some observations after watching The Matrix relative to the world and chiropractic?
Well, I love that you and the distinguished committee chose this as the theme, because it's exactly what we've been experiencing, not just the last 3 years, but we've been experiencing it for years and years, certainly since chiropractic has come into existence, because it's completely about, we've been talking with the students a lot, because sometimes the students will be, well, gosh, I made the adjustment, but now my patient hurts. And let's assume that they did the correct analysis and the correct adjustment, because that does happen sometimes. And the issue is understanding feeling. And that's what chiropractic is about. It's about feeling life around you. It's not just about pain going away. It's easy to get pain to go away. You just take morphine and shoot up and you'll be fine. But those underlying issues. And so that's what I was noticing in the Matrix. So I saw Matrix 1 last night, and that's what I noticed was this willingness to get out of comfort. There's that great scene where Cypher is eating the steak and he's like,
Yes.
I know that this is not juicy. I know it doesn't taste amazing, but I just want to be comfortable is
Right.
all that he wanted to be. And what there's no bigger red pill than chiropractic care, because you get in tune with the world in a way that you didn't know that you could handle. It creates a lot of truths that come out as far as this is not only what health is, but this is what it means to be a living and functioning human in humanity. And so many parallels. I can't wait to watch the rest of them to see what I can come up with, and hopefully my talk lives up to my reputation, whatever that is.
Well, that's interesting that you mentioned about that particular scene. I'm going to share something that you may or may not know. It's a Donnie Epstein reference. Donnie Epstein, you've heard him present before.
I have.
And something he
seems nice.
about,
he seems nice.
Yeah. He talks about energy state. Energy state, not as in energy work, energy state. And he talks about energy state as in like ice versus water versus steam. Those are different states of the same thing, right? What H2O. And he talks about energy neutral. It's a particular state of being. And you just mentioned about Cypher and saying, this is not real, and I know it. Okay. And that it's comfort, right? And that it's comfort. And he says energy neutral is comfort, and it's seductive. It's seductive to want to feel comfortable, like just to make your pain go away, or just, I don't want to feel things. That's seductive, but, growth is not about being comfortable.
No, I mean, not remotely. As a kid, I had growing pains. We all did. And that happens, and it happens physically, it happens emotionally. But that is where not only the growth, but almost like the enlightenment comes from as you go through that system. I mean, I remember I was helping my father-in-law redo a house in Atlanta, Georgia. Mm-hmm. And inside, this was one of those old 1800s houses, and a lot of them had coal fireplaces. And we worked like absolute dogs to get it down to the studs so that we could reclaim this house, because it was really run down. We were taking it down to the studs to build back up, kind of like a phoenix, if you will. Mm-hmm. And because they had these coal fireplaces, was jet black. It was hot, sweating like a dog. But my shower that evening felt so amazing, because I knew what we had done, the amount of work that we had done to recreate this new thing. And it's interesting that you mentioned that, because what really struck me during The Matrix was how much water was in the movie. There's water references all over the place. And if you want to get biblical with it, when we find life, it's with a baptism, and there's water everywhere during The Matrix. And so it really struck me that when we get adjusted chiropractically, that's an energy baptism right there. It just cleans us to be able to deal with the world around us, pleasant or unpleasant, challenging or unchallenging. And what I've noticed is I've grown deeper in my understanding of chiropractic, and the more I get my spine checked. I'm 50. I started getting checked when I was 29, maybe 30. So I'm still fairly new to the game. Mm-hmm. But I'm able to process the world in a way that I always wanted to before I got adjusted, but never knew how to do it. And so now I don't like to say that I had a bad day. So if whatever hits the fan, oh, sorry, it's a bad day. It wasn't a bad day. It was a challenging day. And I rose up to that challenge because I'm in that state right now.
Mm-hmm. Right. And that's important. And in fact, there's different types of stress, right? Can we talk about that? Distress. Sure. And what's the other one?
Eustress.
Yeah. That is also part of comfort versus growth.
I think the word stress has a negative connotation to it. Oh, I'm stressed. Oh, I'm stressed. Oh, I'm stressed. Well, if you're not stressed, then you're dead. That's the only time. Other than that, principle 11 comes into play, where the forces of universal intelligence are unadapted, unswerving, and show no solicitude for the structures in which they work. And what that principle says is you're going to be under stress at all times, and that stress isn't going to care. Eustress is the good stress. That's the stuff when you see your loved one come off the airplane. That's the stuff when you see your dog wagging its tail, when you see that box of donuts, or you see the ice cream. It just lightens you up. When you go home for homecoming, when you walk in the door at Mile High, that is eustress, because that is a stress that we have to deal with. Versus distress is, if you can put a word to it, it's the negative stuff. Maybe it's the stuff, the challenging stuff. So you have the enlightening stuff, but then to have balance, you have to have the heavier stuff. And it's I always like to talk to the students, because that's what they'll hear. Well, if we can get rid of stress, we should do it for our patients, because that's more forces for them to have to adapt to. But we can't get rid of their stress. We can't get rid of all of it. We can't get rid of any of it. It's up to that student, because stress being, well, that's why I'm going to do massage in my office. That's why I'm going to do supplements. That's why I'm going to do, you name the modality. Well, because I want to get rid of these things. But what about all those other things? I mean, do people get stressed when their car doesn't start? Does that mean we're going to have a car mechanic bay? Do people get stressed when they're going through a divorce? Or are we going to have counseling? But that challenging stress isn't the only bad stuff. And I like using the scene from, this is Remember the Titans, so not necessarily The Matrix, but there's that scene towards the end where Jerry is in the car. They've won the playoff game. He's all excited, feels on top of the world, and he gets into the car accident because he was so stressed in a good way. He wasn't able to process the world and see the other driver coming the other way. And so we have to have that balance of good and bad as far as positive and negative. But in order to deal with any of it, we have to have that nervous system free of the interference of the subluxation. And that's what it really opened your eyes, where not only, wow, all right, I have a challenge, but if I just sit in that challenge in principle 6 and let time do its thing, it's amazing how successful we are. Because any challenging thing that anybody's ever gone through, if you're listening to this podcast, you're undefeated because you're here. And so I heard that, read that somewhere, and I really loved it because it took such a weight off of my shoulders. Think of all the stuff that we've gotten through, the stuff that I've gotten through before I got adjusted. And now that I am adjusted regularly, filling my tank of positive survival values, I'm having a time of my life.
You know, you just said something that I was thinking. It's like you were reading my mind.
I was.
Which is survival values. That actually is an area, I think, philosophically, that not a lot of people are aware of. Constructive and destructive survival values. And can you explain that a little bit? Because I think many of our listeners may not have ever heard that. And I think it's a vital part of the chiropractic philosophy, understanding.
Sure. So survival values is, what values are you in? Are you in a constructive value that's going to help you live a longer life? Or are you in a destructive value that's going to take away that life? So to me, one way to look at it is going to be your bank account. And so if you're in debt, right? Imagine us all in chiropractic school, because that was cheap. We never had any debt coming out of that. We bought a home, we bought a car, we got kids, whatever it is. If you're in debt, it's really hard to make it through life living paycheck to paycheck. Can I pay my bills? Versus being out of debt is nice, but that's really zero. So you're actually still pretty close to being in the negative, where life is going to be a struggle, versus building up that bank account so that if life throws a curve your way. So you get in a car accident and have to buy a new car. Your HVAC unit goes out. You want to decide to go back to school. You want to buy a new house. You want to go on vacation. You just want to buy food. we're able to absorb those when we have more money in the bank. And our health and existence works the same way. When we have healthy habits and connections, then whatever the world comes, it'll make a debit against those constructive values, that constructive cash, if you will. It'll make a debit, but it's a lot easier for us then to build it back up. So being adjusted and having our spines checked is essential, because what that does is that's the clean, that cleans the books, so that now I need to do things. I do need to eat right. That's important. I do need to exercise. That's important. Nothing wrong with a massage. I get them and love them. That's just not chiropractic. And so adding those good habits, so waking up and making the bed, going out and exercising in the morning, maybe doing two exercise regimens in the day, eating right, spending time with your family. In order to do those things and get the most out of them, then you have to have that connection between your brain and your body, and that only comes with chiropractic care. So what we want is lots of constructive survival values. So when Principle 11 is in effect and challenging us, well, then we can stand up to it like the lighthouse in the storm.
Right. And that's a vital thing for people to understand. Increasing your constructive survival values and decreasing your destructive ones. However, you're not going to decrease them completely. There are destructive things that are going to happen. Some of them you can't avoid, like gravity. There's constructive aspects to gravity, like you stay on the planet, but there's also destructive things of how it does to your body. So you want to be in an adaptive, optimized state so you can be as resilient as possible, have a buffering for the stresses that do happen. But that doesn't mean you say, I'm going to do more and more things to reduce stresses that are not necessarily chiropractic. It doesn't mean there aren't good things, like you mentioned, if not few of them, but calling them, let them be what they are. Now, because there's lots of other things that are great for your well-being in addition to getting adjusted to do, for sure.
And there's people better schooled than us in those. So let those experts. I want a good chiropractor checking out my spine. So therefore, I want a good nutritionist. I want a good trainer. I want a good, you name it. I don't want somebody that went to a weekend seminar. And so I am super comfortable taking care of only the spine, because it's the most important structure that we have, because within it is that spinal cord that's delivering those messages. So think about going back to the Matrix, right? He's reborn and he's there, right? But if he leaves the Nebuchadnezzar, if he leaves that ship right then, the agents would have ate him alive. And so what they had to do then was hook him into the mainframe and plug in all those constructive survival values. Now I know jujitsu. Now I know kung fu. All those other things that he could do. And that's basically what chiropractic care is doing, where innate intelligence is that supercomputer that Tank sat at. That's that supercomputer that says you have all these amazing things inside you. And what would happen if the plug in the back of Neo's head had a slice in it? There was interference. Well, he might know half jujitsu, and so he's going to be all dead at that point.
Yes. So I get that you are doing your research.
I'm studying.
Yeah. Well, and good for you. You had to keep up.
Listen, the easy part about this, if my talk, there's only 4 movies, so it's a lot easier to get that in than 24, now 25 James Bond titles.
Right.
This one should be a little bit easier for me to finagle.
Good. And another area with the Matrix, what actually in chiropractic is the Matrix? What's the Matrix that we're living in the world? Is COVID the Matrix? Is there something else that's the Matrix? What is the Matrix relative to chiropractic?
I think it's the allopathic system. It's not just COVID itself, but that allopathic system that says listen, as we get older, because of the limitations of matter, I admit it, I'm 50 and I actually feel really good. Been working out a lot, been eating right, probably the best I've felt in years and years. Do I feel like I was 18 or 19? No. And so there is going to be some of that slowdown. But this idea that as we get older, life should be miserable, that we should be on a sack full of pills. I mean, I think about my parents. I know how much chiropractic has helped them, but my goodness, the amount of chemistry that they're taking. So the matrix is this idea that health comes outside in. Right. And it's been around for a long time. It's been around since the Flexner report in 1910, I think. So if you want to read something that'll really spin your mind, is just look up Flexner report on Google, Flexner, Abraham Flexner, and he was hired by the Carnegie Foundation, being funded by John D. Rockefeller. Why would they do that? Because those are guys with a lot of money and they wanted their money to make more money. And so they thought, well, let's take a peek at healthcare. And he's the guy that really started taking allopathic care, throughout homeopathy, throughout naturopathy. They absorbed osteopathy. We were able to stay outside of it. So we are totally the Nebuchadnezzar driving around, where you have this machine with its sentinels that are out there trying to destroy you. And we've seen that through all the people that got jailed. Those folks that got jailed, those chiropractors, didn't get jailed because they were hurting people. They got jailed because they were taking money out of some pockets. And then there was the Committee on Quackery that tried to eliminate chiropractic from the American Medical Association. This isn't made up stuff. This is like, wow, that is completely matrix stuff. And may you rest in peace. Chester Wilk passed away a couple of weeks ago. And so he was the lead plaintiff in that case. That the reason why we're around is chiropractic won an antitrust lawsuit against the matrix. I mean, the AMA. So maybe it's the American Matrix Association. Maybe that's what the AMA stands for.
Yeah. I'll tell you, you're thinking exactly like along the line of how I think relative to the matrix. And I think it's going to be a phenomenal topic matter throughout Mile High 10. And I do think allopathy is the matrix, but I actually do think it goes a little bit deeper than that, Dr. Brian. I think there's something else that underlies that allopathic matrix, which is fear. Allopathy, and there's a time and place for allopathy. Yes. For most certainly. I've benefited from allopathic methods, and in a life-saving way. And so it's not an anti-allopathy thing. However, when you substitute wellness, healthcare, increasing a person's constructive survival value, you replace that with crisis care. That's not very healthy. That's not a good choice. And very frequently, the underlying motive or sales point that's utilized with allopathy is fear. You're right. The Matrix wasn't COVID. This was maybe a crescendo of the allopathic paradigm, or the crescendo of fear, or a crescendo. It was really hitting that gong of fear over and over again. You want to be afraid of everything, and afraid of every viri, and of every disease or every symptom, and find a way to get rid of it with something that might be equally dangerous, right? In some cases. So, and that's vital to understand, is that chiropractic is not based on fear. It's based on trust. When we take care of a person as a chiropractic practice member, we encourage them to trust their body. We do that by telling them that they have an innate intelligence that's, doing things. It's never going to hurt them. It's doing things to help them, right? It's part of being that there's trust in your person's body. Trust your body. Even an adjustment versus a manipulation. Right. A manipulation is still trying to fix something. That's one of the points that makes it different than an adjustment, versus applying a force and trusting that the person's body is going to assemble a force from something that seems innocuous to make a change, and trusting that innate can make that adjustment.
Yeah, I mean, And you really hit it with the fear thing. And yes, I don't want people to think I'm against allopathy. But that paradigm is out of fear.
Right.
If you don't take this pill, you're going to have this thing happen, and that's the issue I have with it.
Right.
But out of fear then comes comfort. Have you ever heard the statement, "Oh my gosh, I was paralyzed with joy"?
Yep.
That's not the statement. I was paralyzed with fear. Because when I'm paralyzed with fear, what am I going to do? I'm going to get into my comfortable position, and I'm going to eat my donuts and those things that made me feel comfortable. And I'm not going to get off my couch. And think about that. If nobody got off their couch, that's what the world wants. And so we are supposed to be out there, and it is an up and down place. And so it will be in balance at some point. But that being said, it's having that ability. Why does anybody, why do people get on, start with alcohol? Why do people start with drugs? Why do people start with anything? I mean, the gateway drug is just simple medication. When you're in pain, or when you're uncomfortable, take this outside in thing. Mm-hmm. And I remember when I was in high school, my junior year, I think, and we talked to this guy. It was right before the proms. They were concerned about people drinking and driving, rightly so. He kicked out all the teachers, and he said, well, why do you drink? And that was what everybody said, was to get rid of, not feel the pain, because we're not taught to. Pain is uncomfortable, but that doesn't make it a bad thing. I'm glad that when I broke my collarbone, I felt the pain, because then I knew not to move it, so I could let innate heal that thing together. Sprain your ankle when you lift it up. Are you healing well? Well, let me walk on it. Ouch. Nope. Then I got to lay down again. And so pain is uncomfortable, but that's where the growth comes from. And that's how you break the matrix, is by being able to, I'm okay with the world. I'm okay. Like, there's that great scene where this is what you thought the world looked like, where it's a nice downtown city, and this is what the world is, and it's trashed because of what's gone on. Well, how are you going to function in that thing? And the only way that you can function in that thing is with a cause for truth and what's right, because other than that, they're never going to leave Zion, mm-hmm. as far as their home base.
Mm-hmm. Right. Exactly. And such an important point. The other thing about that with the fear is, Howard, you said, you hit the nail on the head. It's so often it's sold in a fearful way. Mm-hmm. It's promulgated and promoted in a fearful way. And if we're not careful, we can do that with chiropractic. And people have a new thing to be afraid of. It's subluxation, versus inspiring them that to trust that their body can heal, and that there's a new life, world, quality of life experience ahead of them.
Yeah, I think if I have a criticism of allopathy, their marketing is all about what's wrong with you.
Right.
And I don't want to live my life trying to deal with what's wrong. I want to live my life dealing with what's right, so that when that challenge comes my way, I've got those constructive survival values that are going to see me through it. And so I think that's the big thing with getting through this fear, is it's okay to be afraid. And that's the other thing. Have permission, give yourself permission to be afraid. The unknown's the unknown, and the unknown can be a scary place. But I also know that there's many times, just ride a roller coaster. Think about that adrenaline when you're done, and it's because you faced something. And maybe you're in your practice, and it was that time you had to terminate an employee because it was time. You probably felt pretty good when you were done. You probably felt pretty lousy when you're getting ready to do it, because you're afraid of what was going to happen. And that's legit. So I think what we find is, when we do face our fear, we do things that we never thought that we could do. And life just becomes so much better and more clear. And so for me in my life, being able to do what I'm doing, there's no doubt in my mind it's because I started getting adjusted. And I tell people, I make some of my living these days talking on stages in front of people. And when I was a kid, my social anxiety fear was so high, I would just sit in my friend's driveway because I was had too much anxiety and fear to even knock on the door. And so then the idea, take that, fast forward 30 years, that I would be speaking in front of people and audiences and even classrooms, no friggin' way. And so the beauty, but chiropractic has given me that gift that I'm doing things I never knew that I could do. So I'm living proof of what we chiropractors hear all the time. Hey, doc, I had no idea I could live like this. That's me. And it's because I was okay. I took the red pill. I found out what life in humanity was really about. And that's first and foremost, having a nervous system free of the interference of the vertebral subluxation. And I'm having, like I said, I'm having the best time, and I get to meet cool people like Danny Knowles.
Oh, and that is an extra bonus of living, pulling yourself out of the matrix.
It really is. Yeah. You are our Morpheus. Thank you for being Morpheus. You're my Morpheus.
Oh, well, there you go. I'll tell you, Billy DeMoss is going to fight you on that. He wants to be Morpheus and wants me to be
he's got the hair for it. He's got the hair for it.
This is true. It does all come down to the glasses.
That's true. Yeah, that's a good point.
They separate. They make the separation there. Now, with that, when we take care of people, then that becomes something that's part of their care, helping them not only by adjusting them. And I'm not recommending doing something other than adjusting in terms of an intervention, but it's helping them understand that they've been living in a matrix, and that there's actually a different value and principle system that they could, learn more about that will help them see the world differently. Do you think that's how important is that to go hand in hand with the actual care of a chiropractic adjustment?
Well, that's huge, because most of the time when they come to our office initially as chiropractors, they're coming in because there's fear because something hurts. There's fear of that pain. There's fear it's going to get worse. There's fear I can't do my job. There's fear I can't take care of my family. There's, you name it. Mm-hmm. Fear.
Right.
But when they come to our office, so before they say, I never knew I could live like this, if you give an appropriate chiropractic exam that includes an appropriate new patient orientation that explains chiropractic, what it really is. So the red pill version of chiropractic, not the blue pill version where everything's still comfortable, is all the time patients will say, why hasn't anybody told me this before?
Right.
So they want to know. Patients don't want to be in that matrix. They want to be Neo, and they want to be Stitch and Trinity and all of them to get out of this thing, because when they get plugged in or plugged out of the matrix, I mean, they love it. They see life in such a different way. And we have it at Sherman now. We have a pediatric room that we're pretty excited about. It's got an infant scale in it that somebody donated. And it's cool because the truth is, when people are seeing a chiropractor regularly, while we are portal of entry providers, we become their primary care people. So we become the ones that they're coming to. So they love seeing that we can weigh their babies, and they can see, I don't know, Google it, whatever percentile your baby is. Your baby's 47 pounds. Congratulations. I mean, but they love that stuff. And that's the cool thing. That's why chiropractors, we get invited to graduations. We get invited to sporting events. We get invited to birthdays. We get invited to funerals. We get invited just to hang out on the weekends. And it's because they take us in as part of the life, because we do serve as their Morpheus for all of our patients. We are that light for them. And we're the ones that will tell them there's a difference between knowing the path and walking the path. And that's what we give them.
Yep. So well said, and so important. So well said and so important. And you want to, help a practice member be on the path, walking the path towards one of less destructive survival values and more constructive ones, and towards trust, and having a different view of the world. And that takes energy being put into that in terms of education and so many other things.
Yeah, and as you were sitting there talking, I mean, it's enlightenment. That's what it is. That's all the Matrix movie was about, is becoming enlightened. And enlightened doesn't mean now I feel great all the time. Enlightened is I see the world for what it is, and I know that I can how I can navigate through it. At the end of the day, if we break down subluxation, and I do always like this, it means shun is conditioned, sub is less, and lux is light. So it's a condition of less light. And so when we have our patients without that subluxation, now they've got as much light as possible so that they can see the world for what it really is and see who they are for who they really are, which is usually a lot stronger and a lot more amazing than they ever thought they could be.
Right. So important. Is there any last messages that you want to share with our audience before seeing them at Mile High?
I'm looking forward to going. This is easily one of the best events, and it's one that's become on my calendar. I think I've been there maybe the last 5 of them, so I didn't make the first few.
You're a 5-timer club.
I am. Yes. And so thank you for the cheese board. That was very nice. A very nice gift to be a 5-timer. And we appreciate it. The charcuterie, that was very nice gift to be a 5-timer. But as far as the last thing, this past weekend, I was at the Diplomate in Philosophical Chiropractic Standards, and to be in a room with people talking about these ideas, and not from, I'm going to tell you because this is what I think is right, but we're talking about ideas in order to find truth. And that's really all the Matrix is. And so what I love about Mile High is it is the Nebuchadnezzar. It's the place that we all go. We get reprogrammed so that we can go out into the world and navigate the agents that are out there trying to destroy us or destroy our patients. And so there's really no better place. And you didn't ask for a commercial, but I'm going to give you a commercial because it is truly wonderful. And I look forward. So I didn't give away all my talk. I've got some other stuff that I didn't tell you about.
You didn't give it all away.
What's that?
No,
I didn't give any of it away, actually. I didn't give any of it away, to believe it or not. And so here's the challenge for the people. What's in my head, what's in this head about how this talk is going to go is amazing. What comes out, I don't know. So we're going to have to see. We're going to have to see in a couple of weeks up at Mile High, because in my head it sounds pretty
to see if it's okay or better.
Yes, you can. Yes, if I can get the okay from Danny Knowles, then that's all. Then I'm good to go. But honestly, I would be there if I wasn't speaking. So thank you for the invite. It's very generous to be a part of your amazing stage. And Mile High is really one of those events, because if you watch The Matrix, all of the programming didn't always happen when he was plugged in, right? So it doesn't always happen when we're in the room watching the presentations. It was all of those side conversations that he had, whether it was with Morpheus or with Mouse or with Trinity or with any of them, that really got Neo to decide, all right, I'm going to go ahead and take this leap. And Mile High has the best hallway conversations, bar none, in chiropractic. So that alone is reason to go.
Well, I will say that you just made big wins with Jack Borla by saying that.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah.
Well, that's good. Yes, Jack's
his hallway talks are some of the best.
Yes, absolutely. Most of them are just him to himself, but he records them and puts them on Facebook, and they're really good.
Good. Well, we look forward to seeing you, Dr. Dooley, on higher ground with everyone else. It really is honoring that people make this yearly pilgrimage to the Mile High State to lift up their principles, their values, their message, and take better care of the people that in the world that need us so badly. So thank you for being part of Mile High 10. Pretty amazing. Yeah, there you go.
Pretty awesome.
High five. And we look forward to seeing everybody. If you have not gotten your seats for Mile High yet, you can get the 411 on that at riseuptomilehigh.com and just just do it and make it happen. So, and thank you so much for joining us, Dr. Dooley. And I will say to people that are listening or watching this wherever you are, remember, keep changing spines and lives and minds with chiropractic.